Welcome back to our journey through faith. Today, we're diving into two of the most epic stories ever told, the parting of the Red Sea and the fall of Jericho. These aren't just ancient tales. They're powerful demonstrations of what happens when faith moves from belief to action. Let's start with the Israelites, trapped between the vast Red Sea and Pharaoh's charging army. Imagine the fear, the panic, the feeling of absolute hopelessness. There was nowhere to run. In that moment, what did Moses do? He didn't despair. He lifted his staff, trusting in a promise that seemed impossible, and then the impossible happened. The sea parted, creating a dry path to safety. This wasn't just a miracle. It was a direct response to an act of faith. Moses had to physically lift the staff. The people had to physically walk between those towering walls of water. They had to put their faith into motion, step by step. Now, let's fast forward a generation. The Israelites are at the gates of Jericho, a city with walls so thick they seemed unbreakable. Their mission? To conquer it. But the strategy they were given was strange. No siege weapons, no scaling ladders. Instead, they were told to march around the city once a day for 6 days, and on the seventh day, to march around it 7 times, blow their trumpets, and shout. Can you imagine how foolish they must have felt? Marching in silence, day after day, with the enemy probably laughing from the walls. It required incredible discipline and a whole lot of trust. It made no logical sense, but they obeyed. They put their faith into action, one lap at a time. And on that 7th day, when they let out a mighty shout, the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. Their victory wasn't won by military might, but by their persistent, active obedience. So what's the connection between these two stories? It's the principle of faith in action. Faith isn't a passive feeling we hold in our hearts. True faith demands a response. It calls us to step out, even when the path is unclear or the instructions seem crazy. It asks about taking that first step onto the dry seabed or starting that first lap around an impenetrable wall. Think about the Red Seas or Jerichos in your own life. Those seemingly impossible situations, those insurmountable obstacles. Maybe it's a broken relationship, a daunting career change, or a personal struggle that just won't budge. These stories teach us that our breakthrough often lies on the other side of an action. It might be making that difficult phone call, signing up for that class, or simply taking that first small step towards a healthier habit. It's about trusting that when we do our part, when we act on our faith, the divine will do the rest. The sea won't part until we're at its edge. The walls won't fall until we've done the marching. What is the one small step of faith you're being called to take today? Thanks for joining me for this reflection. If these stories inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one. Welcome back to our series. Today, in part 13, we're diving into a story that's all about second chances and unexpected heroes. We're talking about Rahab, a woman whose story begins in the shadows of a city called Jericho, a city destined for destruction. Now, Rahab wasn't a princess or a prophetess. The Bible tells us she was a prostitute, living on the margins of society, an outcast in every sense of the word. Imagine her life living in a fortified city, hearing whispers of an approaching army, the Israelites, and their powerful God who parted the Red Sea and defeated mighty kings. Fear was spreading through Jericho like wildfire. Everyone was terrified. But for Rahab, that fear was mixed with something else, a tiny, growing seed of faith. When two Israelite spies snuck into Jericho, where did they go for refuge? Of all places, they ended up at Rahab's house, which was cleverly built into the city wall. This was a huge risk for her. The king of Jericho heard about the spies and sent soldiers to her door. Think about the pressure of that moment. The king's men are demanding she hand over the spies. Her life and the lives of her family are on the line. She could have easily given them up to save herself. It would have been the logical, self-preservation choice. But Rahab did something extraordinary. She chose to defy her king, her city, and her entire way of life. She hid the men on her roof and then boldly lied to the soldiers, sending them on a wild goose chase out of the city. Why would she do this? Why risk everything for two strangers, enemies of her people? Rahab gives us the answer herself. She tells the spies, "I know that the Lord has given you this land, for the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below." This is incredible. While everyone else in Jericho was paralyzed by fear of the invading army, Rahab looked past the army and saw the God behind it. Her faith wasn't based on what she had seen with her own eyes, but on the stories she had heard. She believed in the power of a God she had never formally known, a God who was about to judge her city. This outcast, this woman from the edge of society, had more spiritual insight than all the leaders and soldiers of Jericho combined. Her faith wasn't just a feeling, it was an action. It was a choice that put her in direct opposition to her culture and in alignment with God. So, she makes a deal with the spies. She says, "Since I have shown you kindness, promise me that you will show kindness to my family." She asks them to spare her and her loved ones when the city falls. The spies agree. They tell her to hang a scarlet cord from her window. This cord, the very tool she used to help them escape down the city wall, would now be her family's symbol of salvation. When the Israelite army marched around Jericho and the walls came tumbling down, every house was destroyed and every person perished except for one household, the one with a scarlet cord hanging from the window. Rahab and her entire family were saved, brought out of the rubble, and given a new life among the people of Israel. Rahab's story doesn't end there. It gets even better. This former outcast from a doomed city doesn't just get to live. She thrives. She marries an Israelite named Salmon, and if you trace her family line, you'll find something amazing. She becomes the great-great-grandmother of King David, Israel's greatest king. And if you keep following that line all the way down through history, you'll find she is an ancestor of Jesus Christ himself. Her name is listed in the Hall of Faith in Hebrews chapter 11, right alongside giants like Abraham and Moses. She is also one of only 5 women mentioned in Jesus' genealogy in the book of Matthew. Rahab's story is a powerful reminder that God's grace isn't for the perfect. It's for anyone who dares to believe, no matter their past, their reputation, or where they come from. Her faith turned her from an outcast into a key part of God's redemptive plan for the world. Her legacy shows us that no one is beyond reach, and a single act of faith can change your destiny forever. Thanks for joining me for this incredible story. If it moved you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next part.